There is a kind of silence so deep, so absolute, that it doesn't just surround you, it enters you. Only a handful of human beings in all of history have ever heard it. No wind, no echo, no life, just endless black, stretching in every direction. And, in April 2026, 4 astronauts stepped into that silence, traveling farther from Earth than anyone in over 50 years. But what happened out there, between the Earth and the Moon, wasn't just a mission of science, because hidden inside that spacecraft, carried quietly among cables and computers, was something no one expected. And before the signal faded into the void, one man spoke words that would echo across the entire world. 4 astronauts, 1 spacecraft, and a journey that would carry them farther from Earth than any human being had traveled in more than half a century. Inside Orion, every system was engineered to perfection. Every movement calculated. Every second accounted for. Years of preparation had led to this moment. Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, Jeremy Hansen, names that would be written into history the moment they left Earth behind. But beyond the precision, beyond the technology, there was something else traveling with them. Something unseen. Victor Glover wasn't just a pilot. He was a man who understood the weight of where they were going. Days before launch, standing before cameras from around the world, he didn't talk about achievement. He didn't talk about legacy. He asked for something simple: prayer. Not just for the mission, but for the families who would remain behind. Waiting, hoping, trusting. And when he stepped into that spacecraft, he carried something personal with him. A Bible. Not as a symbol, not as a statement, but as something he knew he might need when Earth was no longer within reach. Because where they were going, distance changes you. As Orion broke free from Earth's gravity and began its long arc toward the Moon, something subtle began to happen. The noise of the world disappeared. No traffic, no voices, no endless stream of distraction, just the quiet hum of machinery. And beyond it, a silence so vast it almost felt alive. Day by day, Earth began to shrink. What had once been everything became something small enough to fit inside a window. A glowing sphere, fragile, isolated, surrounded by darkness that had no end. And in that moment, something shifts inside a person. Astronauts have tried to explain it for decades. They call it the overview effect. But words never quite capture it, because it's not just something you see, it's something you feel. The realization that every war, every dream, every life that has ever existed is contained within that small blue world. Everything you've ever known, all of it, right there. And nowhere else. For the crew of Artemis II, that realization didn't come all at once. It unfolded slowly, quietly, as if the silence itself was revealing it piece by piece. Looking back at Earth from that distance, it didn't feel like a collection of countries anymore. There were no borders, no divisions, just one home. One fragile, luminous home, floating in the void. And the deeper they moved into space, the louder that realization became. Because out there, stripped of everything familiar, something inside you begins to wake up. Something that had been buried beneath the noise of everyday life. A sense of wonder, of smallness, of something greater than yourself. And for one astronaut, that feeling would soon find its voice. This wasn't the first time humanity had carried something deeper than science into space. Decades earlier, on Christmas Eve in 1968, 3 astronauts circled the Moon for the very first time. The world was watching, waiting, and from that vast distance, with Earth rising over the lunar horizon, they chose not to speak about engines or data. They began with something far older. In the beginning, those words traveled across the emptiness of space and reached millions of people listening below. For a moment, the entire world went quiet, not because of fear, but because something about that moment felt bigger than the mission itself. A year later, another astronaut stepped onto the surface of the Moon. Before the cameras captured history, before the world could see his first step, he paused, alone, in silence. And he took communion, no announcement, no audience. Just a man, standing on another world, acknowledging something beyond it. And now, more than 5 decades later, Artemis II was following a path that felt strangely familiar, not in technology, but in something far more human. Because as Orion carried its crew deeper into space, the mission began to shift in a way no one had planned. It happened quietly. No scheduled broadcast, no prepared speech, just a moment, Easter Sunday. Back on Earth, it was a day that represented hope. Life overcoming death. Light breaking through darkness. And somehow, out there, between worlds, that meaning felt even more real. The crew asked for a moment to speak. Not because they had to, but because they felt something they couldn't ignore. Victor Glover took the microphone. There was no script in front of him. No rehearsed lines, just the view. And whatever it stirred inside him, he looked out at the vastness surrounding them. Then, back at Earth, suspended in the darkness, and he began to speak. He talked about perspective, about how, from that distance, Earth didn't look like a place divided by borders or conflict. It looked whole, complete, like a single living thing. One home. And then he said something that no one expected. He spoke about the beauty of creation, not as an idea, not as a concept, but as something he was witnessing in real time. Something so overwhelming, it demanded to be acknowledged. There are moments when the human mind reaches its limit, when what you're seeing is so vast, so intricate, that logic alone can't contain it. This was one of those moments. He didn't try to explain it. He didn't try to analyze it. He simply responded to it, and what came next revealed just how deeply that experience was shaping him. He spoke about something ancient, a command that had been repeated for thousands of years. Love God, love your neighbor. Simple words, familiar words. But from where he was, they carried a different weight, because from that distance, there were no neighbors separated by distance or difference. There was only humanity. One species, one shared existence, on a single, fragile world. No walls, no lines, no separation, just people. And suddenly, those words didn't feel like guidance anymore. They felt like necessity, because when you see Earth from that far away, you realize how small it is, how vulnerable, how easy it would be for everything we know to disappear. And yet, despite that fragility, it continues to exist in perfect balance. The air, the water, the cycles that sustain life, all of it working together in a way so precise, it almost feels intentional. Glover described Earth as something unexpected. A spacecraft, a vessel, designed to carry life through the emptiness of space, not built by human hands, not engineered in a lab, but something far more complex, a system so perfectly tuned that even the smallest change could make life impossible. And for the first time, he wasn't just living on that system, he was looking at it from the outside, seeing it as it truly is, a home. And that realization didn't stay with him alone. It spread through his words, through his voice, through the silence that surrounded every sentence. Because people listening back on Earth could feel it. This wasn't just an astronaut speaking. This was a human being, reacting to something that reached beyond explanation. And, as the mission continued, something even more powerful was waiting. A moment where the connection between Earth and the crew would be completely severed. A moment where, for the first time, they would be truly alone. The moment came without warning. As Orion slipped behind the moon, the line connecting them to Earth vanished. No signal, no voices, no confirmation that anyone, anywhere, could hear them. 45 minutes. That was the window. 45 minutes where 4 human beings would exist farther from the rest of humanity than anyone in history. Completely cut off. No backup. No reassurance. Just the quiet structure of the spacecraft and the infinite silence beyond it. Before the signal disappeared, Victor Glover spoke one last time. Not numbers, not status reports. Something simple. We feel your love from Earth. And then, nothing. Silence took over. Not the kind of silence you experience in a quiet room. This was different. This was total. Absolute, the kind of silence that doesn't just surround you. It presses in. Time moves differently in that kind of silence. Seconds stretch. Thoughts deepen. There are no distractions. No escape. Only you. And whatever lives inside your mind. Later, when the mission was over and the crew returned safely, Glover was asked what he did during those 45 minutes. His answer was almost disarmingly simple. He prayed. No audience, no announcement, just a man, behind the moon, speaking quietly into the silence. Because in that moment, when every human connection was gone, one connection remained. And for him, that was enough. That moment became the turning point of the entire mission. Not because of what was discovered, but because of what was revealed, that, even at the edge of human exploration, where technology reaches its limit, something deeper still follows us. Something that doesn't depend on distance, or signal, or proximity.
As communication returned and Orion emerged from behind the moon, the world heard their voices again. The mission continued. Systems checked out. The journey moved forward. But something had changed, not in the spacecraft, in them. Because once you've seen Earth from that distance, once you felt that silence, you don't come back the same. Glover would later put it into words that echoed far beyond the mission itself. He said something direct, unfiltered, impossible to misunderstand. We need Jesus, not in a place of fear, not as a reaction, but as a conclusion, a realization formed not in isolation, but in perspective. Because when you step outside the world and see it for what it truly is, everything becomes clearer. The noise fades, the distractions fall away, and what remains are the things that actually matter: love, connection, purpose, and the question of why any of this exists at all. For centuries, people have looked up at the night sky and wondered what was out there. But this mission turned that question around. It asked something different. What does it mean that we're here, on this single planet, perfectly positioned, sustaining life against impossible odds? A world that, from the outside, looks less like an accident and more like something intentional, something designed. The astronauts didn't return with new life forms. They didn't uncover hidden civilizations. What they brought back was perspective, a reminder that in a universe so vast it defies comprehension, our existence is both incredibly small and unbelievably significant. And maybe that's the real discovery. Not something out there in the darkness, but something within us that only awakens when we finally see how small we are and how much that smallness matters. Because from the distance of the moon, Earth doesn't look like a place of division. It looks like home, and every single person on it, part of the same story, the same fragile existence, held together by forces we barely understand, and yet sustained, protected, given another day, over and over again. So maybe the silence of space isn't empty after all. Maybe it's the one place where everything unnecessary disappears and the truth finally has room to speak. And when it does, it doesn't shout, it whispers, reminding us of something we've always known, but often forget, that we're not as alone as we think, that this life, this world, is a gift, and that sometimes it takes leaving Earth behind to finally understand what it means to belong to it.